if you get sick, how to recover, and understanding how your voice works when it's healthy is what will inform knowing like why you have to do certain exercises or things you can do to take care of your voice to help it get back to healthy, particularly if you've been suffering from anything respiratory related like a cold, like allergies, like COVID. I don't know. They're still trying to figure out how COVID affects the voice, so I am not
Mm.
in any way an expert on that aspect of things. But some of you might remember a couple years ago, I got really sick right at the end of Holy Week, and I like made it through by the skin of my teeth. But then I had to spend a while after that recovering and using a lot of these things myself. So everything I'm talking to you about today are things that I do, that I would do, and can sign off on. But I also want to add that I'm not a doctor. So if it's anything that's actually a medical problem, like I'm not here to answer medical questions, but there we are. And for those of you who don't know, I do have a background in vocal pedagogy in teaching voice, and that was where a lot of this passion started for me. So um, I do speak with a lot of experience from that, but again, not a doctor. So with that, I am gonna share my screen, and can you guys see it? See everything?
Yep.
Cool. Thank you. So, here we are, vocal recovery strategies and remedies. So, we're going to start with the strategies. And within this, first, I want to talk a little bit about vocal anatomy. How many of you here have ever actually seen what your larynx looks like? I expect most of the singers have. Great. Well, we're all singers, but you know what I mean. So, uh, so these are just a couple of different ways to look at your larynx. So on the top here, this is an aerial view. Down here is the front. This is your thyroid cartilage, which is your Adam's apple. Like, and it's both men and women have this. It's just more prominent on men and is typically larger. And then the everything behind it is your vocal folds. And I want to add that all these pictures you're looking at, anytime you've seen what your vocal folds look like, it's a zoomed in picture. In real life, your vocal folds are only about the size of a dime. They're super, super small. So keep that in mind. Super tiny, tiny muscle. And I wanted to show you too. This is a like a front cutaway of what it looks like. So this is where your vocal folds meet, this little bit right here. And these pink areas you can see on either side, those are muscle. Your vocal folds are muscles primarily. And you might hear people call them vocal cords. That is technically also a correct term. I prefer to say vocal folds because it reminds me that it's like a flexible muscular thing, like it's not made of bone, it's not ligament. So anyway, vocal fold is what my preferred term. So your voice is a complex system of ligament, muscle, and cartilage. There's only one bone. The rest of it is all basically tissue that could be considered flexible. Bonus points for anyone who doesn't have a degree in music about what that one bone is called.
Uh,
I won't keep you waiting. It's called the hyoid bone, and it's like a U-shaped bone that sits at the top of your vocal folds, and everything else related to your larynx suspends from that. And it is actually the only bone. This is a fun trivia night sort of fact. Is it is the only bone in your body that is not attached to any other bones. It is only attached to the rest of your body by ligaments and muscles and cartilage. So, and like I said, the vocal folds, also called vocal cords, are made of muscle. And like all muscles, they can get bruised or sore or tired, especially if you've been ill. And you may notice, when you're sick that your voice sort of sits a little lower, maybe it feels gravelly, maybe it's harder to get your voice to work, or if you feel like you've lost your voice. That's what laryngitis is, when your vocal folds are so swollen that they don't really function correctly. Um, but it's not just about sound. It has to do, your larynx sits on top of your respiratory system. And Alex went into this a little bit when he talked 2 weeks ago. And your voice is powered by air. So any sort of respiratory thing that you might suffer from definitely affects your voice, because your voice is the gateway between your lungs and the outside air. Which is why things like coughing can be really bad for your voice. Not like you have much control. If you have to cough, you have to cough, and that's fine. But when you have to cough a lot, it does affect your vocal folds. So there's two primary muscles that compose your voice. The first one is called the cricothyroid, or CT. It is your head voice. It's the sound that's way up here. Everyone has a head voice, men and women. Daily speech, women tend to use their head voice a little more than men. Of course, I'm sure we've all heard something on NPR about vocal fry and how that's a huge thing, that lots of people talk that way. A lot of women have felt like they need to lower their voice to be taken more seriously, but generally speaking, women use more of their head voice in daily speech than men do. And it is a thin, long muscle, the cricothyroid, that is what allows you to sing higher pitches. And the different vowels can also be associated with which of these muscles is more dominant. So when you're singing an oo vowel, for example, it doesn't really matter where you are in your range. If you want to help create a headier sound, you can think about using oo in that sound, whether it's ooh or ooh or ah. Like all of that is like incorporating CT, cricothyroid, into your voice. The other muscle is the thyroarytenoid, or TA. This one is the one that probably works the most for you on a day-to-day basis. It is a shorter, thicker muscle that controls the lower end of your range for both men and women. Men use it primarily more overall. Most male singers spend the majority of their time using their TA. And I'm not an expert on the male singing voice, but you know, the anatomy, we all have the same parts, vocally speaking. So, and the two vowels that you can use to sort of encourage more TA balance in a sound are ah or e. So, you know, if like anyone who's sung musical theater or does belting, like it's a lot easier to belt on an ah or an e than it is on an oo. And the reason I want to talk about both of these muscles is because neither one of them works completely by itself at any point. They're attached to each other. They're attached to the same places. You'll notice they both have thyro in their name, which means that they're both attached to that thyroid cartilage, and they have to work together to create vocal sound. And for those of you who may not know, so imagine like if these are each side, like your vocal fold is on each side, and the way that they meet to create sound is this wave form. So the air comes up from your lungs, goes up, your vocal folds come apart, and then they immediately come back together. This happens anywhere from 80 revolutions per second to, or not second, minute, to like over 300. Like low notes are really slow, high notes are really fast, and they come together really quickly. But it's always this wave sort of thing. The difference between that and, or not difference, but what happens when you cough is these two folds go. So like imagine that you're like going for a run versus running into a wall. Like neither of these things are great. Or I mean, the running part feels good. The running into a wall part, less so. And when you've been sick, your TA, which is that thicker, shorter, slightly stronger muscle, gets a lot of work. It's also, you know, when you get sick and your voice is on the lower side, it's because your TA is working a lot harder. So when you've been sick, then oftentimes what you're going to want to spend more time rehabilitating your head voice than you are your chest voice. You're going to need to work, and these are both called head voice and chest voice too, of course. But you're going to have to work both of them, but you may end up wanting to spend a little more time on head voice, particularly if you're a woman, if you're going to be singing in the higher end of your range. I'm a soprano, so I have to do a lot to make sure that my CT stays in good shape, because even as you can hear, like my speaking voice is on the lower side for someone who sings soprano. And I make quite an effort to make sure that I'm using my voice healthfully, but it's still low. That said, I want to talk about a couple of vocal exercises that you can do.
Jorie, can I ask a question before you go on?
Yeah, of course.
I know you said you're not a pro in the male singing voice, but is that true for tenors as well? It is for sopranos that the CT gets a lot more action.
I would say it really depends because if you're I think that I mean, when you hear like a really intense, crazy high C that a tenor is singing, that's still primarily chest voice, which is actually only a product of the last 150 years or so. Castratia existed before like women were allowed to be in opera. Someone still had to sing the high notes, so it was men using exclusively their head voice. That is not so much in the water for singers these days. So even higher notes, like tenors are going to use their CT more than a baritone or a bass does, but it's still a pretty chest dominant sound. But it's a good question.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And I think you will hear men use head voice a lot more in more popular music styles just because it's a color option for you. Um, it just doesn't come up quite as commonly in classical music specifically. I should also add that the majority of my experience has been in classical music, a little bit of musical theater. There we are. So, a couple exercises, and these are by no means exhaustive. They're just a couple that I really like. So, the first one is that you can fill I recommend a tall glass with a little bit of water in the bottom. I've tried filling it more before, and you'll see why that's a problem in a moment. So, you put an inch or two of water in a glass, have a little straw. It doesn't matter what the straw is made of. It's just to help elongate the whole apparatus of your voice, and which takes work off of your actual larynx. Anytime you sing through a straw or something that makes the end of the whole tube longer, takes work off of your voice, which is a good thing. So you want to place one end of the straw in the water, the other one at your mouth, and then you want to blow into the water like you're trying to blow bubbles, like your mom and dad always told you not to do in your milk at the dinner table as a child. So, and you can just sort of explore around different pitches. So that might sound a little bit like. Could you guys hear me making pitches?
Mm-hmm.
So you can also start, I recommend you actually start blowing into the water with no sound first and then add pitch after that. It's also kind of a therapeutic thing because you'll feel like pressure coming back at you from the water that sort of like massages your vocal folds from the other side. So you can, and the reason for a little less water is I've splashed myself in the face a lot using a cup with too much water in it. So after you know, and if you're happy to just spend some time gliding up and down, like you do not need to go any further than that. But if you want to take it a step further, you can start with doing little ascending bits starting in the lower part of your voice and slowly going upwards in thirds. So I'm going to start with like the A below middle C, and I could just do, for example, and then you move up the next half step. And you want to slide in between notes. It's not about singing perfect notes. It doesn't have to even really be in perfect, like, intonation. It's just about helping your voice sort of, like, stretch these muscles out again. Because one of the other things that happens when you're sick, if you're coughing a lot or anything like that, those muscles get tired, they get sore, they get stiff. So this is a way to help loosen the muscles up again. And when you're doing this, you want to make sure you keep a good amount of space in your mouth. So you're not like pinching your lips because you're trying to drink anything. It's just, you want to keep like there's still a pretty good amount of space inside my mouth when I do that. So that's the first one. And it's handy because then you have some water to drink while you're practicing. The next one is, I just call it hum and chew. It's exactly how it sounds. If it helps you, I also want to add a little caveat, like, you might feel like you sound stupid and like, you just have to get over it. Like, singing is a thing that is not natural. It doesn't come natural to anyone, but I promise you that these things will make you feel better. So, and if you feel like the humming and chewing, at least, and the third one I'm going to talk about are things you can even do like in the car, on the way to church, if you're at a stoplight, whatever. It's like not something that's loud. It doesn't take, it's not a full body thing, although you should always sing with good posture and good breath. Alex pointed that out 2 weeks ago. You're not doing yourself any favors by not having good posture and breath. That said, hum and chew, just like how it sounds. Imagine you can smell your favorite dessert baking. You can't wait to try a bite of it if it's brownies or apple pie, or maybe you hate dessert and it's bread or something. You know, it doesn't matter. Just to sort of get the sensation going. So, and the reason for the chewing aspect is the way that your voice functions. So before I was saying your folds are like this. So if we just turn it and it's like, if these are your folds and they're working like this, then your voice tilts to create pitch. So when you're going lower, the muscles get shorter and flatter. And the higher you go, the more they tilt and the longer they get. So it is this like rocking until, and they also go side to side like this. Your voice can move it's truly a miracle. The voice is incredible. But so chewing is you opening and closing your jaw at this hinge that sort of can encourage your voice psychosomatically or something to also do that rocking and tilting motion. Again, it's just something to help stretch and keep things moving. So if you're going to hum and chew, it's even just as simple as and you really do want to explore all parts of your range comfortably. It doesn't need to be extreme, but you want to do a mix of both things. And going back and forth too, like all these things are great. Humming is also a really good way, is another way that you can take some of the work off of your vocal folds, because that vibration is being stopped at your lips. So if you like, humming is a really good way to warm up. So if you've been exploring, you can start with a relatively low pitch and then sing descending patterns like sol mi do. This is just like 5-3-1. Sol mi do is a pattern I use a lot. You don't have to stick to this pattern specifically. But the nice thing is, by starting this way, you are starting with that thinner muscle and encouraging it to like shake hands with the thicker muscle. And you want to start in the lower part of your voice because you only want to use a little bit of head voice, and you're going to add a little more with each ascending step. So it's something like this. And again, the chewing is encouraging your larynx to do this tilting motion, which is a good thing.
Can I just say something cool
Yeah,
that
of
I
course.
observed? Did you hear, as Jorie was moving her jaw, the subtle vowel shifts changing the overtones as she was singing, related to what Alex was talking about and how vowels and overtones relate? Do it again.
The same thing I just did. And the thing is, by doing it in this part of my voice, like that first pitch to me feels very much head voice. The middle one is a mix, and the bottom one is more chest voice. And I'm starting in this key because this is what works for me. You can totally play around with it. And I'm just using like GarageBand on my iPad. Like most Apple devices now come with some kind of keyboard app that you can totally play with. Or if you have a piano in your house, even better. But so then you would do this in ascending half steps, but still the exercise itself is descending. So and with each one, you don't have to start right on that first pitch either. If you want to explore a little bit first, if you want to start way below and then slide up to it, anything is great. So for example, you could do like just to sort of like make things loose and flexible. It's great. Or you could, if you wanted to do sliding up, so you can just go mm. Pick your poison. The third one is this is about creating a little bit of that back pressure again, what I was saying before about bubbling the water is like the bubbles themselves, like the resistance of the water against your air is sort of a little massage, and this is a similar thing. It's like by creating this air pressure, it create like a little tiny bit of a vacuum. It makes your vocal folds come all the way together, which is called occluding, before you phonate, which is what you want. Your vocal folds should fully come together for you to make sound. So there's a couple different ways you can do this. You can place the back of your hand against your lips. You can place a finger against your lips horizontally. You can just do it like this. Any of those, I've used any and all of these, they all work. But the idea is to let a little tiny bit of air build up. And if you guys want to try this with me, please do, because it's kind of fun. You want to let a little bit of air build up behind it, and then quickly remove your hand or your finger so that you start creating sound. So let me just demonstrate. And you can pick any pitch. It's like not really that important, other than you want to stay in the middle to the lower part of your voice. But so, boo, or just to do one pitch, boo, boo. Do you guys want to try that? Boo. Yeah, and whichever one works for I like the back of the hand one. I stick with ooh vowels because I'm trying to encourage more CT, more head voice. But you could do it with other vowels too. Like if you're trying to get your chest voice a little bit stronger, you could totally do ba, ba. It feels like there's the letter B sort of happening before it, but you don't want to think about it actually being the letter, because you don't need your lips to come together. But
What, Bobby?
so with this one, you can just pick different random pitches. They don't have to be in a sequence, but if you've done that a few times, or if you want to take it a step further, then you can do that same 5-3-1 sol mi do pattern. But with this one, you actually want to start in the middle of your voice and go down. So this is starting with getting your head voice involved and then introducing it back to your head voice again some more, or your chest voice again some more. So I might start in D major, the one that's right on the middle of the scale, on the middle of the staff. So boo, and then descend by half steps from there. So boo. And you do not need to, volume is sort of irrelevant. I'm not sure how loud it's coming through for you guys, but I'm singing at what for me is like a, not mezzo piano, but not mezzo forte. Just like the volume, whatever volume comes out. If you start feeling really tired, you might be singing too loud. Take it a step back. But it is important not to try to do any of these things at a really loud or a really soft volume, because both of those are a lot more tiring for your voice. So that is the vocal exercises part. If you guys try these and you love them, let me know. If you hate them and you want some different options, or you're just curious, let me know. I'm more than happy to talk about it. But so I'm gonna move on to the next part. This is the remedies part. My completely experiential guide. I'm not a doctor. So I also want to say I'm not going to talk about any kind of actual medications, because that is a totally personal and individual thing that you should absolutely do in consultation with your doctor. Everything I'm going to talk about is homeopathic and honestly can be bought at most grocery stores or pharmacies. So the first thing is this really cool dietary supplement called bromelain, and it is spelled like this, and I guess it doesn't have an E on the end. That's okay. But it's an extract from pineapple. So even if you can't get bromelain, you can eat some pineapple and basically get a similar experience. Bromelain you can find on Amazon. I bought this at GNC. It is a little hard to find at like your average pharmacy, but GNC has it. I've bought it on Amazon before, and it's like $10 or $15 for a bottle of 60 tablets, and it's a 1-a-day thing. Bromelain can help reduce swelling. So if you've been singing a lot, or if you've been sick and you're recovering and you know you're gonna like have to sing a whole service at church, you can take this both for symptoms and sort of as a preemptive thing. I take it sometimes when I'm sick, just so that if I have to do a lot of talking or anything like that, that this is sort of working in advance to help keep things from getting real swollen. It's also apparently aids in digestion of proteins, so it's like good for your digestive system. The next one is turmeric. Do not go to your spice cabinet and just pull out the bottle of turmeric. It's not the same thing. I had that question legitimately when I was told to try taking turmeric. So I'm just passing on that knowledge. So I asked this stupid question, so you don't have to. Turmeric is, it on the bottle it'll say maintain healthy heart and cardiovascular system, help support joint function, mobility, and comfort. All good things. Again, can also help with reducing swelling at your vocal folds. And for me, the joint function part makes sense too, because you are talking about needing the cartilages that help your voice function to work correctly. So turmeric is another one. And these are both basically vitamins. Like it's not a bad thing if you take them and you don't really need them. Your body will just get rid of what it doesn't need. But I like these both, and I take them anytime I'm not feeling super great, vocally speaking. And the other one is Zicam, which I feel like a lot of you already know about, but I swear by this stuff this time of year because it is a cold remedy. It can shorten the life of colds. It's not going to keep you from having a cold completely, but the first time I ever learned about this stuff, I took it and I had a cold for like 3 days instead of weeks. So it comes in a couple different flavors. It comes in lozenges as well as a nasal spray. I personally prefer the lozenges. The one downside is like you have to take it every 3 hours. So I always have to set a timer to remind myself, and it makes food taste a little bit funny. But it's honestly worth it to only have a cold for 3 days instead of what feels like forever. So Zicam is really great. And this one you definitely can buy pretty much any Target, CVS, Walgreens. Generic versions work too. I happen to have the name brand one here tonight, but I've absolutely bought the CVS brand before too. And turmeric, like I bought this in the vitamin aisle at Target. So that's those. And then I feel like many of you have probably heard about Neti Pot before. I was a reluctant convert to the Neti Pot, but now I am absolutely an evangelist about it because it does the job. It's good stuff. So the Neti Pot I have one that's Arm & Hammer brand, but you can find these. They're made, and they make them out of ceramic. Mine happens to be out of plastic. But it's basically you fill it with a combination of hot water and a saline solution. Don't just put regular table salt in here. It's not the same thing, and you can hurt yourself. Don't do that. Neti Pots often come with a certain amount of little saline things. I also was able to buy a whole box of extra saline packets at Target. But it's just like, it's a combination of salt and baking soda. And you mix that with water. And with the water, you don't want to use water straight out of the tap unless you boil it first. Because like there's all kinds of fun things that can live in the water. And it's going to go through your sinuses. And so you can just use like distilled water and put it in the microwave if you want. Don't put plastic in the microwave because A, it's bad, and B, the thing will get super hot. All that is to say, the way that the Neti Pot works, for anyone who doesn't know, is basically you fill it with water and the solution, you mix it up, and then you put it in one nostril, preferably over a sink. I wouldn't just, do it anywhere. But you're going to pour it, and the water travels through your sinuses and out your other nostril. It's simultaneously very gross and very satisfying, especially like this is great if you have seasonal allergies or if you've been really stopped up, just like if you have a stuffy nose. It's really great for that. It's not recommended to do it more than once or twice a day just because you want some of the natural stuff to stay in there too. But the warm water I find is really soothing too.
You will
If
not
you
believe what comes out of your nose.
Oh,
can be really gross, but it's like I'm one of those I definitely don't watch those like weird pimple popper videos or anything, but it's a similar kind of feeling of like, oh my god, I can't believe that was in me, but I'm so glad it's out. Like it's a weird thing, but it's very satisfying. So, and the other remedy that's similar to that, and I have a lot of singer friends who use this, I just have never tried it, is called like the Neomed Sinus Rinse, which is a bottle with a little cap on top. It functions basically the exact same way, except that it's a squeeze bottle, so it provides a little more pressure rather than this is basically just gravity. Um, and but the bottle pushes like gives you a little bit more oomph to get things out, and the bottle also like this can sometimes like you do have to have a little tiny bit of flexibility for it because you have to like be bent over a sink and turn your head sideways, and the Neomed Sinus Rinse, and like there are off-brand versions of it too. The bottle is a little less so, you don't have to be like tilted and bent over, so if mobility or flexibility, or even if you're just like sick and sore and you don't want to like hang your head over a sink, then the Neomed thing is handy. Both Neti Pot and the Sinus Rinse thing are things you can buy online, but they carry them at Walmart, CVS, Walgreens, all of those places. So that's those. And then I also want to talk about beverages because, you know, singers famously always have their tea or whatever with them, and I have tea here tonight. But there's a couple things in particular that I really like and that I would recommend. The first one is Throat Coat. This stuff is amazing. When I was really sick after Holy Week 2 years ago, I think I went through an entire box of this tea in like 1 week. It's just really soothing. It's the primary ingredients are licorice root and slippery elm bark. Basically, it tastes a little bit like black licorice. It's not a super strong or spicy flavor. It's a little sweet. You can totally add honey to it if you want. I'm fine drinking it by itself. The one I have is just like the plain regular, but you can see the picture I included here. Also, they make like lemon echinacea flavor. But this one is really good just if your voice is feeling sort of raw or tired. It's very handy for, and it's, I mean, the name kind of tells you what it does. It just helps support your throat health. The other one, similar to that, also by Traditional Medicinals, is Breathe Easy. This is especially good if you've been having respiratory problems. The added benefit of all of this too is you get like, just like breathing the steam from the coffee or from the tea is great. Like steaming, long hot shower, also a great thing you can do for your voice. Just like steaming is great. We love steaming. But Breathe Easy is licorice root, eucalyptus root, fennel fruit. Those are the primary ingredients. There's a few others in there too. Both of these have very herbal flavors. Totally add lemon or honey or whatever to them if that's your game. That's what those are. And these I've seen these at the grocery store. Like not every grocery store, but for sure Target has them. Can you guys tell I shop at Target a lot? I'm like unofficially sponsored by Target. But these are both really, really great. And also any tea that has lemon and ginger in it, but because it's sour and sort of causes contraction of muscles, like it's good because it's like encourages swelling to sort of go away. It's not perfect, and obviously anything you swallow is not touching your larynx. If it is, you're choking, and that's bad. But so things with lemon in them are really good for that reason. Ginger is an immune boosting herb root, I don't know, plant. Ginger is great for a lot of things, and even if you don't want to have to buy lemon and ginger tea, you can even just buy a lemon and some ginger root and grate it up and put it in hot water and squeeze some lemon juice in there, and voila. It's like that's basically what's in the tea bag when you buy lemon ginger tea. I also keep at home, I have ginger green tea, I have ginger turmeric tea. Like pretty much anything with ginger in it is great because it's immune boosting, and the lemon just helps with the swelling. I'm going to skip down and talk about this one too. Emergency is good just like as an immune boosting thing. It gives you extra vitamins, and because you mix it into water and swallow it, like your body can absorb it a little faster than just like a daily multivitamin. But This one, for example, has like 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C and 1,000 units of vitamin D, both of which can just like help keep you strong and help you get better when you've been feeling sick. And they come in different flavors and stuff too. Can you see what brand it is? And the last thing, I don't even know how to pronounce the name of this thing. All I can tell you is that it is some like Asian voodoo magic. Like, it's really good. It's honey and loquat syrup. It's marketed as a dietary supplement. It's extremely thick. It's kind of like a molassesy consistency. It's sweet. It's really nice. I tend to put this in tea instead of honey, or you can just do a spoonful of this in hot water. This you can definitely buy on Amazon. I think it's $15. It's like obviously from, the distributor is New York, but it's like half of the bottle is in an Asian language that I can't read. So like, it's good. It's some good. So, but a lot of my friends use this. This is really good if your voice is just tired, if you've been singing a lot, if you get home from, if we're recording these even songs in the spring, like a good thing to have before or after or during. This stuff is incredible. So, and the last couple things I want to say, and these just go for health in general, but especially for your voice, because your voice is built into your body. Part of the reason why your voice shows it as soon as you aren't feeling well is because it is built into your body. Sleep. I cannot emphasize how important sleep is. To that point, like, melatonin is amazing. If you're scared of taking sleep medication, melatonin is choice. I also read something recently. A study was performed about whether or not melatonin might help fight COVID. But I think that was like, even in the article, they made the argument that it's like, it might not be the melatonin. It might just be that it's helping you sleep, because one of the side effects for some people of COVID is sleeplessness. So getting enough sleep is very important. Hydrating is super important, particularly things that don't have caffeine and they don't have a ton of sugar in them. Water is your friend, especially if you're sick. And I'm sorry if you think water is boring. I need you to get over it, because water is so good for you. And like seltzer, if seltzer is what gets you to drink water, fine, that's great. But definitely make sure you're drinking plenty of water when you're sick. And just in general, like, I can't imagine not carrying a bottle of water with me everywhere, because I've been a singer for too long not to. But it's so important. And also because one of the things I meant to mention earlier about the anatomy of your voice, so it is these muscles, right? But the muscles are wrapped in this layer of mucus, this mucosal layer, and that is actually what gets affected when you're not hydrated well enough. That mucus gets really thin and it can't really do its job as well, and then it's the muscles just going right against each other, which is what can make you sound hoarse, or what allows the muscles to actually bruise a little, or not bruise, but what makes them sore and swell. So drinking enough water helps with that as well. And the thing to point out with hydration too is, like, if you need to sing 2 hours from now, you need to be drinking water right now. Like, drinking water in the moment is not going to help you unless you just have like a little in your throat. It's not going to hydrate you in the moment. So make sure to stay hydrated. And the last thing is just listen to your body. Your voice is built into your body, and it'll tell you what it needs to a degree. Like, if you're tired, sleep. If you're thirsty, drink something. If you're singing and your voice starts to feel really tired, stop. Sing less. Don't sing the phrase one time and sing it the next time if you're in a situation where you can't just walk away. But you have to take good care of your voice because it's the only one you got. There have been incredible advances in voice transplants and things like that, but that science is all still incredibly experimental. So for now, just treat it like if you break it, you're done. So that's what I got. Vocal health. Does anybody have any questions? It was so riveting.
It was fantastic. I have learned something that I did not know at every single one of these.
Cool. I'm glad. I'm glad that my like incredibly expensive master's degree did not